14th stage. We've gone past the unlucky 13th yesterday, which is unlucky for people like Greg LeMond. We'll put you in the picture about that later on, as we now admire the view back down the valley. The riders start this morning just off the slopes of Sestriere on this route today of 186 kilometres, and you can see there it's a very, very rough one indeed. As we're now starting up this climb here of the Col de Lotto. It is just a little pipe opener before they head up then towards the Col de Galibier, which is a Hope category climb, and that is the cracker for today. 2,640 metres above sea level, and in fact all this climb up from the valley, they will be travelling some 21.5 kilometres up, and you can see there back down the slope that the crowds have already got up here to wait the arrival of the race, and it's right down in the valley. This climb up the Col de Galibier then today, the first 10.8 kilometres will have a climb of 5%. Then toward the top, the last 8.7 kilometres will be a climb of 6.6%. So those are the sort of climbs they've got on the Galibier just ahead of them. And then once they're over the top of the Galibier, we're picking up the leaders at the moment. This little group on the front, and yet again we can see that the Carrera riders are starting to have a go. Already this morning, over the first climb of the day, it was the rider from the R.M.O team who went away and took the first of the climbs of the day. So that was just a second category climb that was within the first 8 kilometres. And here then we're just picking up these little riders who I suspect, with Stevens here, I'm sure that my co-commentator today, Clayton, will be very pleased to see Stevens in that little group, because I've got Clayton Stevenson, who was with me yesterday, and he, like I, marvelled at the performance yesterday. But right now, I suppose, Clayton, to see one of your countrymen up there must be giving you some enthusiasm, despite the fact that the chase is coming up with Bunyo in the lead.
Yeah, certainly, David. After yesterday's stage, I'm sure all the riders are quite tired, and to be going this early into the stage, I mean, they've only covered 40 kilometres, and you can see the pace is very high at the moment, and the groups are starting to split already.
Well, I'm sorry, by the way, that when they put up the commentator, they just put a Union Jack up. They don't get the Australian flag for you. We might qualify next year. I'll have a word with Alan Piper too, because he often helps me out, see if we can influence the coloured flags. Well, there we have Miller going across, Fignon coming up. A very active bunch indeed, as Chioccioli is on the wheel of Bunyo. And look at the way that Fignon comes up to his team leader, because he's riding with the Gatorade team, is Laurent Fignon. And he's up now alongside and taking up the pace. This looks like a challenge we might see developing. Further back down, I can see the yellow jersey of Indurain, and he looks back down. My goodness, we wondered if yesterday, after that decimation of the field, when the riders had a terrible hard day in the saddle, 7 hours, 44 minutes and 51 seconds it was for the day's racing yesterday, when the stage was won by Claudio Chiappucci, averaged something like 33 kilometres per hour. They were 2 kilometres an hour faster than the expected fastest time, and we thought there'd be perhaps a lull in the storm today, but not so at all, as Clayton here riding on that quite unusual bicycle, isn't that, on C1?
Yes, that's the new model of look frame, and I noticed yesterday a lot of most of the riders were riding steel frames. Normally the teams are supplied with carbon fibre or the very light aluminium type material for the climbs, but just looking at the front riders yesterday, almost without exception, they were riding the conventional steel bikes.
Well, one unconventional bike out in front at the moment, and here, unconventional as ever, Laurent Fignon cracking away, trying to pull back that little group up in front. Robert Miller sat in the back. Well, he's no stranger to the Alpe d'Huez. He's had much success there in the past. He's also taken some right pastings too on that climb. That's the one that is at the end of the stage today, 186.5 kilometres they've got to cover today. So that's just over 100 miles, about 110 miles in all, and the riders yesterday on that long stage, 7 hours 44 minutes. The previous day when they were racing, and they also had a tough day the day before, and we thought that would knock the stuffing out of them, they were also in the saddle about 7.25 hours. So if you add those two together, the top men had something like about 15 hours in the saddle in 2 days racing. But some of them came in a long way down. And if your Sunday paper has not already reported it, let me tell you that there were 14 riders abandoned yesterday, including Adrie van der Poel, Remmik Stumpf. Steve Bauer was out because he had tummy trouble during and after the time trial. Laurent Dufaux, the young Swiss rider, decided enough was enough. And of course, Inaki Gaston, who crashed, was also eliminated yesterday. And outside the time limit, unfortunately, Abdul Japarov, we're not going to see him charging down the finishing line at the Champs-Élysées in a week's time. Sunday week, it all finishes, but still a lot of racing ahead of them. And look at those wonderful peaks. As far as we're concerned, sitting here, you at home watching the view, you think, isn't that marvellous? Well, the blokes down on the road are on that Inferno trail up towards the top of the Galibier. Peter Meinhardt was outside the time limit yesterday. Mauro Gianetti outside the time limit yesterday as well. 14 men then abandoned. Van Hooijdonk didn't start. So right now we're down to this morning 148 riders. Yesterday were the number that finished the stage. And Greg LeMond just got inside the time limit. He finished 49 minutes and 38 seconds down on the winner, Claudio Chiappucci, who did a marvellous ride on his own, one of the best we've ever seen. And now look at this, they've come up straight through as well. Is this the onslaught we're going to expect? Bugno, who has in the past 2 years consecutively won the stage up the Alpe d'Huez, but on this climb now they're somewhere around about the 46 kilometre mark, or coming up towards the 46 kilometre mark. Today then 186 kilometres. They've still got another 140 kilometres to go. That's around about 80 odd miles. So Bugno has gone on a very, very early attack here, and that is quite a surprise. Bugno lying at the moment on general classification, third overall. He's 4 minutes 20 seconds down on Miguel Indurain, who has the yellow jersey. Claudio Chiappucci is in second place on general classification, 1 minute 42 seconds down. And we're looking at Robert Miller, who is in 15th place overall, 17.26 down. And also in that little breakaway group at the moment, Laurent Fignon, who is 10 minutes and 11 seconds down in 7th spot. So there's some very, very good, strong riders in this little group at the moment. And I don't think this bunch behind are going to let them get too far. Jean-Francois Bernard burning up the tarmac on the front here, and the gap now 22 seconds. This is a cracking race already, and we're only some 40 odd kilometres into the race. Well, Clayton, we were talking about this morning, weren't we? So, well, they might take an easy day, but I mean, he looks like he's riding smoothly enough.
Well, certainly, you can see the break that's up the road. There's Bugno and Fignon from the same team, and obviously Bugno is trying to get time and put the pressure on Indurain, which you can see here with his two teammates, Delgado and Bernard. Both Delgado's a previous Tour de France winner, and Jeff-Francois Bernard is a previous stage winner. I mean, they're both brilliant riders, and here they are riding through Indurain. And it's getting quite desperate. You can see the bunches strung out there, and there's a lot of riders that are suffering. You can see they're moving around on their bikes, and there's a lot that seem very uncomfortable there. So the pace is very quick, very early in this stage.
And the riders then, Gorospe we're just looking at the moment. Fabrice Filippo is out of the race, by the way, as far as Banesto is concerned. They've lost one of their men, so that's going to thin it down somewhat. Jean-Francois Bernard, a rider who started the season in fine form by winning the Paris-Nice, and that final time trial we had up the mountain at the finish of the race had to be seen to be believed. He came back with a bang. A lot of people had written off Jean-Francois Bernard, who's had more than his fair share of troubles over the years, but here he is riding his heart out on behalf of Indurain. This is some chase, absolutely tremendous. And still the two riders on the front then for the Banesto team. And now then, we haven't really seen a lot of Bugno. He tried to attack yesterday and he was marked immediately by Indurain, and now they've allowed him to get away a little bit at the front, also helping taking up the work on the front here then. Chioccioli, who is got his back towards Italy, previous winner of the Tour of Italy. A very, very accomplished mountain climber indeed. See the number on his bike there, 1. That shows he is the team leader on his Bianchi bike, 191. 11 here, legs 11, shows that Bugno is the number 1 for the Gatorade team. And then coming up behind, Robert Miller bouncing out the saddle. Neil Stevens looking good as well. Robin with it, and Laurent Fignon. So, Oh, Neil's having a go, isn't he? He's been around for a long time. I remember him riding for ANC. It must have been about 7 years ago. He's a long-standing pro, isn't he?
Yes, well, Neil called me a little while ago before the tour started, and he's ridden the Tour of Spain, the Tour of Italy, and now the Tour de France, which to ride all three of the big tours of 3 weeks apiece in one season is quite an achievement for a rider. So he was looking forward to riding the Tour, and certainly yesterday we saw a lot of his jersey on the front, and today, now again, he's in the break.
Let's look what the gap is then. 27 seconds on the climb up towards the top of the Galibier. That's still in sight of this field behind, but you can see the pressure is on. A lot of riders. Neil's team, though, isn't too strong. They're not at the moment seeming to be able to get up there. I don't see many pink jerseys.
No, we didn't really see a lot of the Once team yesterday, but I mean, Neil would be looking at being in a break himself and trying to do well in the stage, and he's there, and he's got his teammates back in the group if they're caught, so he's just taking his chance, and he's in with some good riders, and certainly this break's looking very dangerous. You can see it's early in the stage, and it's become a lot more desperate than it was yesterday. Yesterday, as we watched the race, it unfolded quite steadily, and until the last sort of 20 kilometres, they started driving on the last climb. But you can see here now that they're looking round, and they're certainly not as steady as they were yesterday.
Well, Millar has been getting better all the way through this tour. I've been watching him. He's always been there or thereabouts, and I've never felt that Millar, he'll probably tell me to mind my own business, was actually busting a gut, and I think he wants to win a stage. And this one today being a little bit shorter, in fact, a lot shorter than yesterday, something like about 70 kilometres shorter, and you can see there the mountainside where in the winter the snow comes pouring down off the top of that mountain. They get avalanches and all sorts of problems. In fact, the Galibier during the winter often gets closed by the terrible conditions they get up there, and they're heading up towards the top of this mountain, which has been used on the Tour de France ever since way back in 1911 when they first went over it. 1903 the Tour de France started first of all, and now we're going up this very, very famous mountain then, up the top of the Galibier, and let's see if these riders here can stay away, because once they're over the top of that one, there's an enormous drop down to the 103 kilometre point, so they've got something like about 50 kilometres downhill. They're hanging on for grim death. We're going to take a short break, so do come back to us in a couple of moments' time to see if they can stay away to the top. And as you join us then, this main group of riders well spread down the road. You can see in the distance the cars. A nice shot from a helicopter that's dropping down level with the road, because there are some wonderful sights we can pick up off the helicopter with no problems about power lines and houses and what have you. And this is a magnificent scene. Just look at those capped mountains in the back there with the snow all over them. The riders here in the cool of the tunnels. And in fact, yesterday when Claudio Chiappucci attacked, he had been accused very often by Indurain and one or two other riders of attacking in a tunnel, because he likes to do the unusual, and they complain about him attacking in a tunnel. So yesterday when he took off, after 14 kilometres had been covered, he actually attacked Chiappucci right in the daylight, right out where everybody could see him. And I won't say exactly turned around and showed him he was off, but he really took off yesterday at the 14 kilometre point, and they all saw him go. And like being in a tunnel like that one, which is especially built, by the way, so the snow can come down off the top of the mountains and not block the road. So Claudio Chiappucci took off yesterday completely inside of everybody else. He had a group of some 9 men with him to begin with at 14 kilometres. By the time he got to Sestriere, some 240 kilometres later, that's something like about 150 odd miles on his own. He was still on his own, and he won the stage. So that was a daylight sortie as far as he was concerned, right under the noses of the top riders. Well, he's just back there still, Banesto trying, but they seem to have lost a bit of rhythm at the moment.
Yes, you can see the riders there, they're really putting in, and they had to ride quite hard yesterday as well. And this move by Bugno and Fignon in the front group is very smart, because what they're doing is putting pressure on the domestics of Indurain, which is trying to break down his little army that he has.
Well, he's a bit weaker this year as well as regards support Indurain, because one of the key men that was riding with him last year has gone off and joined the Gatorade team. I'm referring to Abelardo Rondon, who rides number 16, who's just in fact sitting towards the back of the main Banesto group there. Very strong and dedicated team man he is indeed, but now he's riding with the Chateau Dax team. There you can see Fignon in the green and black colours. Those are the colours of Chateau Dax, and here their team leader Bunyo looking remarkably cool, calm and collected, but yesterday he did look in an awful state. See where the race is going, all the way up that climb in the distance. So here the Col de Lotteray, 46.5 kilometres into the race, and Neil looks quite comfortable in the pink.
Yes, he's got his shirt undone, and he's just put his glasses up on top of his head. He could be perspiring a bit too much into his glasses. You can see the Castorama rider there, Jean-Cyril Robin. He's only 22 years old, and he's leading the French point score at the moment. He's one of Cyril Goumard's boys, and he's a second-year professional, and he's really made the transition into the bunch here, and you can see he's riding very smoothly.
So the group still getting away at the moment. Having a quick look at Neil Stevens. He, 1st of August 1963, so he's coming up towards his 29th birthday at the moment. So, and he's been around quite a long time. He must have been riding as a pro in England when he was only about 22 then, I suppose.
Well, actually, Neil turned professional in Australia at the age of 17 and made his retirement at 19, so he's on his second wind at the moment, a decade later.
Well, he came across to England. I remember him turning up, this young Aussie, and there was a little team called ANC. There was one fellow, Mickey Morrison, was riding with them. He was the only single sponsored rider. Mickey, who came from Stoke-on-Trent, had found ANC, which is a carrying company, that one of these sort of large vehicles you run up and down the motorways carrying goods and parcels for people. Well, they're splitting here. Chioccioli going away, isn't it? That's quite a turn up for the books. I know he wants to try and get the Col de Galibier, which has got a wonderful history as far as the Italians are concerned, but nevertheless, the rest can't hold his wheel at the moment, can they?
No, well, he looked to be working in with Bunyo, even though they're from different teams. I don't know, they looked to be working together before, but obviously now he's gone ahead a bit, and it's Bunyo that sort of takes up the chase and is riding tempo on the front of the group at the moment. And
young Robin coming off the back of that one. I was saying about the ANC, well, that was interesting, because first of all, this Mickey Morrison got this sponsor and had found him in Stoke-on-Trent, and then Neil Stevens joined the team. There were just two of them, and this young Neil, we never knew who the hell he was. He turned up to ride in this team, and he started riding some of the city centre races, and I explained actually before he joined me, Clayton, and Cardiff, he went down with a bang, and the shower of sparks appeared on British telly for sort of weeks afterwards, and he disappeared. We didn't know what happened to him. Now you put me in the picture, retired and came back again. And ANC, of course, went on from strength to strength. From that small beginning, acorns do large oak trees grow, because the ANC team eventually rode in the Tour de France when people like Malcolm Elliott and Adrian Timmins were the only two to finish. The first year they rode, it started in Berlin. It was so fast on the flat to begin with, nobody could sniff the front. And in fact, I'm pretty sure young Sutton was in, well, not young, old by then, too. Shane Sutton was in the team, but that was a British team, the first British trade team to ride in the Tour de France for many, many years. We have to go back to the old Hercules days, when in fact they're usually split teams rather than one single team that were riding. And so ANC, with Halfords and Lycra supporting them, rode in the Tour, and young Neil Stevens had been one of the early founders of that team. There are a bit of background history information for you while this race is going on. They certainly are climbing quickly.
Yes, you can see there the motorbike with the information board. That's quite helpful to the teams chasing, because it allows them to know which riders are in the front and which riders have got the time. I mean, it's very easy for us to sit here and watch the monitors, and for everyone to sit at home and know you've got the advantage of seeing everything with the motorbike cameras. But the riders in the group, they rely on these information boards to understand what's happening in the race, and also from their director sportists to come up in the car and supply them with information.
And a beautiful, stylish rider here, winner of the Tour of Italy last year. The man who's tipped very much as the new copy. He even has that sort of similar style. He rocks his body a bit more. There's a lovely picture in the book we have all the Tour de France. With so many books, you can virtually start a library when you get home with information about the race itself and past history and so on. Magnificent picture in sepia on the pages yesterday of Fausto Coppi heading up towards the victory in Sestriere. and he had that very slim sort of style as the rider we've just been seeing on our screen, but he used to ride a bit more rock steady than that. That fellow was just pushing a bit hard. I'm not surprised because the heat is belting down. Yeah, yesterday, well over 30 degrees, that's 80 something plus. And then we have Chiappucci then, 318 points, Virenque 167. You can read all that down for yourself. But you see what Chioccioli's going to try and do now. He's got a chance then of moving up second on the King of the Mountains, and that confirms the first climb of the day when Virenque went up over the top. They're all pretty well bunched together. R.M.O was driving hard because at the first sprint of the day for the EEC little sticker, if you ever get a chance of looking at R.M.O on the podium at the end of the tours, any of the stage of the tour, you'll find he's got a little blue sticker up on his jersey. That's because he's leading in the special sprints we've been having as they've gone across from one country to another. And the one at Montgenèvre this morning was won by R.M.O. So, as to the best of my knowledge, we haven't got any more of those EEC sprints because we've gone across all the borders of all the countries now. It looks like R.M.O's won that very special event in this year's Tour de France, and will have at least something to show for his pains and suffering in the race so far. Well, the man determined, I think, to get to the top of the Col de Galibier, 2,640 metres above sea level, is this man we're watching now. From the bottom of the mountain to the top, 21.5 kilometres in all to be covered, but he's had two little bursts on the banjo. The first 10.8 kilometres, 5% climb, and now he's on the tough bit toward the top, the final 8.7 kilometres of 6.6%, and the neutral service vehicle's dropping in behind him, so it looks like he's getting something like 30 seconds on him.
Yes, I think the riders at the moment, they're not too worried about the group outing, about the Italian out in front. I mean, they're more or less worried about the group behind. They're trying to keep their distance, and for Fignon, you can see him riding on the front again for Bugno, and they want to get over this climb and get down this descent. I mean, it's going to be a very quick descent. You're looking at a straight 20 kilometres, and it's quite a steep gradient, and it levels out and climbs up a bit. And I mean, they're virtually with the little section in the middle of the descent that climbs up. I mean, they've virtually got 47 kilometres of descending, so they want to get over the top and get down this.
And the man at the back struggling to stay in contention, Greg LeMond. We saw the result of the first climb of the day. I told you about the sprint after some 8 kilometres, but as they climbed up Montgenèvre, Greg LeMond had difficulty again in hanging on, and he's off the back now as we're looking at Chioccioli, 22nd at 22.31 on general classification. So he is no great threat to the yellow jersey, but certainly he wants to get up here. There's a special prize, by the way, at the top of the climb here in memory of Henri de Grange, and this man is on his way to try and get it. Come back and see if he does do just that. And Chioccioli still in the lead then, ahead of this group, heading up towards the top of the Col de Galibier. Miller on the back now, one or two of the early hopefuls hanging on for grim death. And look at the riders behind being split off what's left of the main group of riders. Probably only something like 140 in contention really this morning when they set up. I think 148 was the actual start number. Having a quick look at the old notes here. And now there can't be many more than about 90 or 100 or so in that bunch, and the yellow jersey just back then in third spot with his Banesto teammates round about him, but up in front Chioccioli on his way to collect some maximum points. Well, I think Chiappucci in this field did just a great ride yesterday, and he's got so many points in the King of the Mountains competition that he can afford, if I use the word, a day off. Then he can certainly sit in now and wait and see if Indurain is going to crack. Well, everybody in the tour, oh, look at the name there, R.M.O and Limo actually cut in the grass. How about that as a bit of advertising, eh?
Oh, there.
Well, I have to say, well, Clayton rides for the R.M.O, eh? Did you do that?
No, certainly not, no.
Well, I suppose next year it'll all grown over. Mind you, we don't come over the Galibier every year. We haven't been over it since 1989 when Tunisia went across. A couple of years before that it was Munoz. And in 1986, Carrera won the climb, Rodriguez in 84. And we can look back to the roll call of honour of riders who've gone over the top of the Galibier in first place since Georges went over in 1911. Include great names like Bahamontes and Charlie Golf, Fausto Coppi, of course Eddie Merckx and Zotamo Okana. All the great names over the years have gone up the top of this one and carved their name in the history book. So little Robin seems to have decided enough is enough. Miller at the back sitting in quite comfortably here. I don't think they're going to see their way up through and collect that prize at the top. Robert Miller looking stronger than I've seen him for some years in the Tour de France. He finished 4th in '84. He's taken the King of the Mountains jersey in the past as well. We've got to look back as far as 1989 when he had a stage win. Robert finishing 10th overall, and now he's in this little group here, pretty certain, I'm sure, to be thinking of an opportunity of winning the stage up the Alpe d'Huez. But a man with equal intention is back in the main group. That's Gert-Jan Theunisse, because I can tell you, camping out for the last couple of days, there have been hordes of Dutchmen, and the Alpe d'Huez have been closed since 9 o'clock this morning for people trying to get up the climb. They've either got to walk it or ride their bikes up and try and find a vantage point, because it's absolutely seething with people who are watching on their television sets this broadcast of the race. All the portal tellers there, masses of people round about with their picnics going full bore, because this is the first time in the Tour, this stage today and the stage yesterday, when we see virtually all the stage on television. Normally we've only got the last hour and a half, or maybe the most 2 hours of coverage on television, and sometimes we've had maybe half an hour in the morning, a little bit of gap and come back again. And they've used across the mountains special ways of beaming the pictures from peak to peak to get them into the main transmission place. But right now, nice shot back down the slope. Cameron wanting to get a picture, and I think he might have wanted to get Hino in there. I think Hino was in that particular car to make a sort of classic shot of it. But now with satellites, the old picture can get boomed straight up into the sky, and we're getting a lot of modern technology coming along, which is giving you, all your people at home, an opportunity of seeing what the race is all about. Because we don't normally get to cover these parts of the race. We may just get a camera on top of the Galibier, pick a bit of it up from a couple of static cameras in the old days, and maybe 1 or 2 shooting down the slopes, but you wouldn't get the whole story whatsoever. And I'm just thinking, Clayton, are you sort of wishing in your heart you were out there with this lot despite all the suffering?
No, well, I mean, I'm pretty thrilled at the moment. Neil Stevens, a sort of fellow countryman, but also a very, very good friend of mine. I can see he's progressed over the last few years, and he's overcome a lot of difficulty and a lot of physical problems to be where he is today. And I mean, he's in Once, which is the one of the biggest Spanish teams, and here he is in the break in the Tour de France, and I think it's terrific for him.
How does he get to ride an Australian for a Spanish team? I know you ride for a French team, R.M.O. I mean, how do they get sort of switched from team to team, or is you getting little encampments of Aussies in certain teams? Because there's at least another one in his team, isn't there? Yes. He's got Hodge with him, hasn't he?
Yes, he's got Stephen Hodge, and they've also got the Welts brothers from Denmark in the Once team. It just happened that last year at the World Championships, Neil put in a tremendous ride, and the Once team was sort of aware of him through Stephen Hodge, and here he is today with the Once team.
And another tremendous ride. Then we're talking about the young riders in the race, and Hodge in particular, and Stevens. We were looking then in the gap at 30 seconds at the work that Fignon was doing on the front. So we get these new riders coming through, rubbing shoulders with the giants of the road. Fignon it is that's taking Bunyu up, because whilst Chioccioli has given him the split on this climb of the Galibier, Miller's doing the right thing, I think, in sitting in just behind, up towards the top of this climb. That special prize, the Souvenir Orny des Granges, is up the top of the Col de Galibier. Up there was a special prize of 20,000 French francs for the first rider over the top. That's about just in excess of £2,000 in English money, and that's a prize for the first one. The second one will still get 10,000 French francs. That again is about £1,000, and well on his way to taking this one is the rider from Italy riding for the GBMG boys, and the field behind them is not quite so spread out as we had before.
No, they seem to have come back together again, but if you look just behind this group, if you can look a bit further back, there's a lot of riders struggling, and already further back you're going to have your bus or your back group, and they're going to be just riding steady up the climb, and they know they've got a long day ahead of them, and they just want to survive today.
Well, they survived yesterday. The back group, the bus, I'm pretty sure it was Duco Lassalle that was the bus driver or the ticket collector, because he came in 124th, 49.38 down, And the whole crowd of riders came in just round about 50 minutes down on the winner yesterday, and I would think someone like Duke Arcel, who's got this to a fine art now, was probably one of the lads who'd worked out just what it was to get to the finish. Here we are then, nearly towards the top of the Col de Galibier. What happened yesterday, the stage winning time was 7 hours 44 minutes and 51 seconds, and they have a sliding scale of percentages for the winner's time and what will be the cut-off point for the late arrivals. And yesterday it was 13%. The maximum was 15% for 31 kilometres per hour average speed. Well, they did 33 in fact, and so it was a 13% elimination yesterday on the time, and those riders who came in just inside 55 minutes were all allowed in the race, and a whole bunch of them did just that by the skin of their teeth, except for people like Abdul Japrov and Meinhardt, who were outside it, and a load of other boys who abandoned as well. Well, on his way up toward the top, setting a tremendous pace, is this rider here, Chioccioli. And when they get toward the top, you can see it's one of these gentle, long climbs. People say to me, well, what are these climbs like to ride? I mean, in England, we get short, sharp little stinking hills. We get several of them, one on top of each other. But, you know, it must be real pressure to go on up like this all the way.
It's not only physical and sort of a mental pressure. They can actually see the road ahead, which makes it difficult. You've got the temperature. You've got the temperature rising, and at that altitude, I mean, you're looking at around they're getting around the 2,200 metre mark, and they'll be going to 2,640 metres, and certainly the breathing will become more difficult, and as the air gets thinner, it's there's less oxygen in the air, and they're going to have to work a lot harder.
And breathing very deeply indeed to get that oxygen into the lung, because the body needs that fresh air going into the lungs for the heart to pump round the blood, and the heartbeats now must be tremendous to get the strength back in, because what's happening is that the starches in the body are being used up and burnt into sugar to provide energy, and that's going on inside your body, and you have to breathe more and more to get more and more energy and effort. And look at the weight split. You're quite right, they're sliding off the back now. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. There can't be more than about 45, the maximum 50 riders in what's left of the main field. And we're only on the first big climb of the day. We came over a second category one just after 8 kilometres from the start, when Greg LeMond suddenly discovered he'd left his legs in the hotel bedroom, and he was off the back. And now we're getting towards the top of the Col de Galibier, with some 55 kilometres covered when they get up there. A long sweep down the other side. Again, about 50 kilometres to the bottom, and that, as Clayton was saying, is nearly all downhill. There's a little bit of a going up a bit for only just a sort of a couple of kilometres or so. So at least they'll be having some relief. But then we go up towards the Col de la Croix de Fer, and that will come after 132 kilometres have been covered. So that's round about 80 odd miles of the race down the other side. In fact, there's no rest for the wicked today. You're either going up or you're going down. The shape of the course is absolutely phenomenal today. There's a little bit of a flattish run in towards Bourg d'Oismois, but that's only for probably somewhere around about 8 or 9 kilometres. But pretty well all day today, they're going to be either up or down.
This second climb, the Croix de Fer, that's a French name, and the translation for that is the Cross of the Fire. So. Maybe that's a sign of things to come today, David. Well,
I've been over there when it wasn't a cross of fire. I can tell you on the Monte Carlo rally I was mentioning yesterday, actually when it was again so snowy, there was about sort of 6 and 8 foot banks of snow on the top, and we all got stuck in the snow, and the car I was with had to be pulled out of the ditch when we slid down, and it was so damn cold up there. All the inside the windows were freezing up and everything. But what a difference today. 80 plus degrees in English Fahrenheit, and 30 something in centigrade, and the sun bouncing off the rocks in this rarefied atmosphere. Robert Millar is in his element. Good to see him back in such fine form, the bold Robert, who is doing, I think, the right thing and sitting in there looking ever so calm and collected. And what a character he is. I was saying yesterday too, writing in Cycling, the weekly magazine, some of his thoughts, and you may remember the problems with the big trucks that were blocking all the roads. Well, actually Robert was in sympathy with them, I noticed in last week's copy of Cycling, because he said Well, I wouldn't like to have this new point system. He said, I go across 2 red lights on my bike and I lose my driving license. Well, even I didn't know that was the law. I didn't think they were going to get bike road. Perhaps it was his subtle sense of humour, because Robert now is developing into quite a dry sense of humour. For years he wouldn't speak to the press, but now as he's getting older, he's getting more generous with his comments to the press, and I can tell you he's got a very, very dry sense of humour indeed. You need a sense of humour in this game, don't you, Clayton?
That's for sure. Robert's one of the few vegetarians in the bunch, and he the French pride themselves on seeing how much red meat they can eat, and Robert's always laughing at them, telling them that he can survive on just bread alone. So, and he literally does survive on bread alone.
Well, another man who was vegetarian, Alan Piper, actually in the Tour of Italy, he went on 159-kilometre break, and he nearly won the stage when he got caught, and then he got awarded a special prize of £250 worth of salami, of all things, and he's vegetarian as well. I don't know what he's done with it. Salami sandwiches for the team for the next 2 years, I suppose. 125, that's really opened up, hasn't it? It was just around about 20 seconds as we started at the bottom of the climb, and Chioccioli 125 ahead on the climb up toward the top, and he's nearly there. We'll have the old clock going when they go over the top, already out of sight of these riders. Chioccioli, it looks like Miller's stretching his legs a bit.
This small group, you can see the sign just back there, sponsored by Coca-Cola Light, the king of the mountains, and they've got 1 kilometre to the summit, and then they're going to be similar to yesterday. They'll be zipping up their shirts and jackets and going flat out on the descent. The camper vans in profusion. People have been stopping here all night. Actually, if you look up on the mountainsides in the evening, you'll see all the lights on of the caravans, and the little fires they're having up there. They're cooking their food in the evening, and here we see the rider just getting up towards the top of this very, very famous climb then, following in the wheel marks of people like Fausto Coppi, and looking down to see who was the last Italian to go over the top here since, in fact, Fausto Coppi 52, which is some 40 years ago. I can't see another one that's actually got over the top here in first place, so that's going to be something the Italians will be very pleased to see, because he's not going to get headed now. The crowd applauding him on the way up. The last few zigzags, the hairpin bends, as the photographers on the side of the road get their pictures, the records of this great performance of a classy rider indeed, who probably since he won his Tour of Italy last year has gone on doing good performances. We've been looking for something like this from him in this tour so far without success, but he certainly today said that one's going to be mine. And all these spectators, we're not far from the Italian border. We came out of Sestriere, we sort of freewheeled down the mountain this morning, and then here we are so close to the border. 55 kilometres of the race have been covered, of the total 185 that's got to be covered so far today. They're down up the top of this climb. That's around about 35 miles of racing so far. And Miller's come off! Miller's come off, and Bunyo. Oh, what a disaster. Well, we didn't see that, what happened. It's so easy to touch a wheel but normally there's a gap between. I hope none of the spectators, what they often do, they stand out on the corners to see what's happening, and it's not unknown for spectators to leap out and not realise there's another rider tucked in coming around the corner. Let's hope it wasn't a spectator, and if in any case, whatever the reason was, that they have not come to any damage at all, because that'll be a great disappointment if Robert and Bunyo have in any way suffered as they fell. But they're going somewhere around about 12-14 miles an hour at the moment, so in 1 hour 43 minutes of racing, Chioccioli takes the trophy Henri de Grange, and the rest of the field closing up, I think, on the escapers. We might see a regroupment on the way down. What a disappointment. Yes, well, we saw yesterday at the finish in the last 2 kilometres, the crowd were closing in on the riders, and we saw at one point Chiappucci was actually stopped. He had to go round the motorbike. And when the police can't control the crowds, I mean, no one can. And for the crowd to be stopping their hero, I mean, that's really not good for the sport.
Well, I have been thinking since that yesterday, Clayton, that somehow they can't rope the whole of the area down. They can't put barriers up on the whole of the route down. But I was just wondering, in some of these big climbs, well, they might have to start putting cones out and ropes in some way with the gendarmes in front of them, or painting a line so the gendarmes can spot who steps forward and try and apprehend them. Because when there's no line, when there's no, say, curb to stand on, when there's nowhere for people to know where they're supposed to stand, they all try and get a better view, and one goes past another one, and you get this little funnel effect. Everybody tries to get a better view. Little lad here on his father's shoulder's got a first-class view. But look, they're all edging forward, and in the end, everybody suddenly discovers they've got bike riders on their toes.
I mean, we saw at the English Grand Prix last week the spectators running onto the track with Nigel Mansell. Here we can see Chiappucci driving on the front over the climb, getting ready for the descent. I mean, they're all in. All the top riders now are in a good position for the descent.
So Chioccioli over the top in first spot. That misadventure for the followers, because Fignon had to drop back then for Bugno. They'll have certainly lost a bit of their rhythm. Miller, unfortunately, also brought down when he touched the wheel or touched the spectator. 1:27 is considerable, and let's see how Chioccioli drops down here, picking up some of the other riders on the way.
There we can see Christophe Manon and Thierry Laurent. Thierry Laurent had most of the early season off. He broke a bone in his foot out training, which is unfortunate. There we can see Thierry Clavriole there, just at the bottom of the screen, just passing in the Z colours. There's Ronan Penzek.
And he's really taken it. Only Jean-Francois Bernard is struggling now. He was trying to help on the top of the further down the climb, but he's gone now, hasn't he?
Yes.
Well, that really has sorted them out. This climb, and still more riders coming up here. They'll be coming over the top, I think, anything up to 10 minutes. Even Breukink has been seen off now. He was going quite well yesterday, and well, that really has sorted them out. This climb, and still more riders coming up here. They'll be coming over the top, I think, anything up to 10 minutes. Even Breukink has been seen off now. He was going quite well yesterday, and
you can see Müller there and Fondriest at the back also.
So this group trying to rejoin. We're going to take a short break. Come back to us in just a moment. And still the riders climbing up the Col de Galibier, following behind Chioccioli, who's taken that very special prize. You can see there the gap that's opened up. Little groups of riders waiting to join in the chase down the hill. Back at the pack there for the Amaya team, just zipping up his jacket. We had a quick look at the Danish rider, Per Pedersen. And it seems that the Onse team, having worked hard for the green jersey for Laurent Jalabert, are now paying for their efforts, and also in the days when they had Zula early on in the yellow jersey. They really are drifting off the back now.
Yes, I mean, teams have good years and bad years, and last year they seem to be winning everything, and maybe this year they've gone off a little bit, but I mean, it's like any team, they have their ups and downs.
Well, of course, they're without Marino Lejarreta, who crashed badly in the early part of the year, so badly that he's out. In fact, for 3 years on the trot, he rode the Tour of Spain, Tour of Italy, and the Tour de France. We're mentioning that Stephen Hodges done that. Well, Onse seemed to breed men of that ability, because Lejarreta did it. Mauri, who won the Tour of Spain a year ago, was also struggling to find his form this year. So some of their riders are not going quite as well as they used to do. Perhaps they've been put under too much pressure in previous years, and they're needing a bit of time to get back. Oh, look at the pain and suffering.
Well, it's interesting. You look at different sports, and you look at the number of times each competitor races in any 1 year, and then there we can see the crash.
Yep,
yes.
Yep. We don't see the reason for it, though, do we? We just see spectators helping put Bugno back on. Now, we've got another view from this side here. Well, Miller's foot's out of the pedal, but we can't see again as to why that happened.
Certainly at that speed, it's not really a dangerous thing. I mean, they've just hit the ground, and obviously they've got to get it back on their bike as quickly as possible. And fortunately for Robert there, he had the spectator just to be able to hold his seat and just to be pushing him so he can get that gear ticking over again.
Well, on the right-hand corner of the screen then, we had a shot of one of these triangular road traffic signs which showed rocks falling off the side of the mountain. I suppose someone would come along and draw a cyclist falling off the side, the way that Miller and Bugno went down again. But Soren Yates, I can see him there in the British Champions Jury. These are the heavy men, very often the big, strong chaps who are looking for the honours in the sprinting on the flat, but they begin to struggle a bit. I'm looking down at some tulip jerseys. Where's my friend Alan Piper got to? Is that him? 1, 2, 3, 4 back from the front? Wait till we get a better picture. There's Yates anyway in the white jersey with the red, white and blue band around him. So Yates is still there. Not a bad climb, but he wouldn't expect to be up with the mountain goats, would he? Theunisse there from Motorola as well. It looks like De La Cuevas on the left-hand side, Banesto. He is really struggling, isn't he?
Also, Brian Holm.
Yeah, and there's De Leon here, likewise for Helvetia, stageman already in this tour. He is really beginning to take some pain and suffering, isn't he? One or two of these big riders here we've seen earlier on are beginning to pay for their earlier efforts. Just shows you the state they're in, because is that Rue going through as well?
That looks like Marie.
Ah, right, yes, he was Marie. And so Terry Marie, who tried to win the opening prologue and got pushed down to 3rd place. Bit of a surprise for him. Well, my clock shows that they're still on the way up the climb, and it's 7 minutes and 40 odd seconds have gone since the leader went over the top, and look at him gasping for air. And the crowd applauding the valiant efforts of these riders. They know that they are having a job to do to protect their teammates on the flat. On the early part, looks like a policeman standing point duty on the very top of there. I think it's probably sensible, because anybody gets up, this is where they can kick stones down onto the road. So I think he's been sent up there to sentry duty. And here we go again. Well, a motorcyclist on the left-hand side there was right up behind Robert. I wonder if he touched his wheel or whether he came to hold after. No, he's come to hold afterwards.
Quite often on the hairpin type bends like that, the riders do bunch up very close, and when a rider gets out of the seat like that, their bike tends to move backwards. So maybe Bunyo's back wheel moved onto Miller's front wheel and just touched. I mean, it's only a matter of centimetres, and once you touch, you're sure that you're going to come down.
And so with Panasonic suffering here, well, Panasonic won the team time trial in fine style. They're better off on the flat part of the course. So Eddie Bowmans is doing well for a young rider this year. We're backed up with the leader, and those two Panasonic riders will probably be at least 9 minutes down. And at the top of that mountain, we'd covered 55 kilometres, so it's only about 35 miles of racing, and they've lost already 9 minutes on Chioccioli here, who took that time of that climb of the Galibier. And this is the downhill bit. I think he's going to wait for that chasing group, it looks, isn't he?
Yes, he's. We were talking about this yesterday, just trying to get in the energy back, and you can see he's got 3 back pockets there, and he's got just a small amount of food in there, just so he can keep eating. And later on, when he comes up to the feed section, he'll take more in the bag. But certainly on the big climbs, he doesn't want to be have his pockets full of food.
Well, the food station is at Saint-Jean-de-Maurienne, and that will be after 103 kilometres have been covered. It's pretty all downhill now, so they can munch away on the descent. Just look at that wonderful, wonderful sight. Absolutely magnificent to come up here to watch the race and to soak in the beauty of the Alps, the crags up there, the snow still there. It never ever goes away from the top, because it's just sheltered from the rays of the sun at its hardest, and it's very much very solid inside. And here this group, Miller still sitting on the back, having recovered from that crash that we saw. We wish them luck on the way down. Ineke Gaston, as yesterday, had a pretty bad crash, and we've now caught a fly. That's one less. Now you can see sometimes why these riders either wear the goggles on the descent or put the little cap in front of their eyes to stop the insects from flying in them. Nothing worse than an insect in your eyes. I've had that in the past, and even worse, you got your mouth open, collecting one in the back of the throat.
Just looking at the riders here, you can see them descending very quickly, and the technology of the bikes these days, I mean, they certainly don't have the high-tech ABS style braking that the cars do, but the brakes that they've got now are very strong, and they're braking here basically with the front brake. And I'm sure if something more urgent came up and they really had to stop quickly, they'd be using the back brake as well, but tending not to use the back brake so much, just in case they lock that back wheel. And especially on a descent like this, you never know when there's going to be melting snow, and there can be often times you can come around a corner and there'll be water across the road, and that's a fatal thing, to be locking your brakes on the water. And and that's why the riders are tending to use their front brake and just to be a bit careful here.
The fly was proving very difficult to move off. The cameraman, by the way, has got headphones so he can hear his director speaking to him, and I should imagine that he's never before been asked to, will you please get the fly off your lens. What we can see, or you can see it at home on your television sets, larger than life, but I tell you, the little eyepiece that the camera is looking through is about the size of a matchbox. He's just got it, and it's in black and white, by the way. They don't, some cameras can have colour, but now normally they look in black and white. The actual view eyepiece he's looking through is no more than about the size of a matchbox. And he's got to pick up the picture, he's got to zoom in, let either his zoom lens pick it up as he wants, or he's got to hold it back to get the exact shot he wants, so it's nice and clear for you at home to watch it. And these cameramen are absolute experts. I know that a lot of my friends in other sports say that the French cameramen particularly, the only thing they're good at, or the best thing they're good at, is covering the Tour de France, and when you get to things like rugby and so on, they don't quite get the same angles and the same in-depth coverage as perhaps other cameramen do, but when it comes to Tour de France, they're unbeatable. And there, Robert Millar getting rid of a bottle. I was looking back at the reports in 1986 of the stage from Briançon to L'Alpe d'Huez, 162 kilometres, when Hinault and Le Monde were battling out for the yellow jersey. That was one when they finished up the Alpe d'Huez, and when Le Monde and Hinault came over the line together, virtually in first place, and say, here's Bugnot say, come on through. And Félix Levertin, who was then the race director, said as they came down off the Galibier, they did exactly the same thing down his 30-kilometre descent, that the way that Hinault and Le Monde, both of them, were just riding each other into the ground. They both belonged to the same team, but the battle was on between the young upstart Le Monde and the man Hinault to try and get that yellow jersey. And they said they were going down at 90 kilometres an hour, locked in combat all the way down, having their own private little battle at just this little group of about half a dozen men, Chiappucci, Indurain, together with they've got 17th of the hairpins, by the way. If you want to know what the little zigzag sign is up on the top left-hand side of your screen, that is the number of zigzags towards the top. The gap between them and the leaders is 3 minutes and 27 seconds. Chiappucci is pushing hard to try and catch up there, but he must be awfully tired after that phenomenal ride that he did yesterday, when he spent something like 155 miles in the lead, either with a group of 10 or on his own. I think he's saying a few choice words to his Italian friend here, coming along, and it must be, I suppose, it's sometimes been encouragement, but sometimes occasionally I don't think he's really enjoying it, is he?
No, I think at that point the spectators become a bit of a pest to the riders. I mean, no sport survives without spectators and fanatics, but certainly yesterday we saw a very dangerous situation where the spectators actually blocked the road, and I really hope that the French police can control the roads today better than the Italian police did yesterday. And
of course, earlier on the climb, the Col de Galibier, the touch of wheels, or we think a spectator might have come out and caused the wheels to touch. Bugnot went down together with Miller. They weren't badly hurt. It was just within about 100 metres of the top, but that was also put down to spectators stepping out and getting in the way. Well, that was unconfirmed, that report. We certainly saw them come down, and this group then beginning to accelerate on the climb. Theunisse is still there. Hey, he's fought back. So I thought we got rid of, I thought we were down to just 5 men, but no, 2, 4, 6 of them there.
Yeah, that's Virenque there with his jacket wide open.
I think Claveriolo's got his name well and truly plastered on the wall there. Somebody's been busy with the whitewash.
Yes, his home's not so far from there. He lives about 75, 80 kilometres from Alpe d'Huez. So I'm sure a lot of the locals will be there painting his name on the road. And
all these 5 are still sitting together very well indeed. And their Moto 1 shows you that is the leading group, and they've unzipped the shirts except Hampsten, who looks nice and cool and calm with most of his zip done up. Franco Vona alongside him, 2-stage victories in the Tour of Italy this year, and Boyer, winner of a stage in the Tour of Switzerland, and Montoya at the back, 2nd overall in the Tour of Spain, and young Jan Nevens in there, already a stage winner in the Tour this year. We're back with the giants of the road then, still this little group of 6 men. under pressure from Claudio Chiappucci, but I don't know what's going to happen to Theunisse. He's surely got to drive this a bit faster. I mean, Chiappucci's going well. They're dropping people off the back, but it doesn't seem to be quite fast enough at the moment to make Clayton to pull back that leading group. And it's a long way to go up this climb of something like about, what, 12, 13 kilometres, of which 10 is very, very tough indeed.
Yeah, it's quite obvious that this group here is going quicker than the front group, but that time gap is certainly too big to bridge. And all the, I mean, realistically, Chiappucci and Indurain, they're going for the time. The other guys, Theunisse, he's the best he can hope for, 6th place, so he's just sitting there and waiting for the finish. And Richie Virenque, there you can see he rode strong yesterday for the early part, and he started this morning very hard as well. So he's having a very good Tour de France. I mean, he's 21 years of age and second-year professional. So he's really he's carried the yellow jersey, the polka dot jersey. The polka dot jersey that you see here, worn now by Chiappucci, signifying the King of the Mountains. Which is the accumulation of points every day, and each climb is categorised as to the difficulty and the amount of points allocated towards that. But you see here Montoya now, he's dropping off, and that's quite interesting because you can see he's not panicking. I don't know whether he's been dropped or he's just got maybe slipped a gear, or they're not sort of surging yet. They've got, we can see now the 10-kilometre mark to go, and this is where the climb really starts to get hard. You see Hampsten and Vona riding side by side, which is an indication that they're still riding steady. You see Boyer there, the Z rider, he looks extremely comfortable, and I don't like making predictions, and usually when I do I'm wrong, but I like his style of riding. He's extremely aggressive, and if he's got the energy left at the finish, Boyer will really attack, and he'll attack hard.
Well, we've seen riders on this climb in the past blow suddenly. As I said that Millar in this climb at 4, he's had all sorts of problems in the past. He knows what it's like. He's further down the hill now, and last year Lino said he lost 10 minutes from the foot of the climb on the leaders that he had been with before. So still 3 minutes 17 seconds. They've got a lot of work to do to catch up with them, and Millar, way back in 1989 on this particular climb, lost 3 minutes on the climb, and he didn't get shelled out until they were about halfway up it. So let's keep our fingers crossed for those riders up in the lead at the moment. And this is the chasing group, who now realise that unless they accelerate, they certainly said bye-bye to chance of winning the stage. There are points, of course, in the King of the Mountains, and there'll be a lot of prize money going down in the King of the Mountains for the different places overall. Theunisse riding here will want to accelerate and move further on. Now you can see the motorcycles up in front beginning to go up. I think these riders are sensing perhaps they might be closing the gap down, and certainly we'll wait for the next time check. It has been coming down bit by bit, and the further up you go, I think it's Gonzalez, my mistake, on the CLAS rider. I thought earlier on that the one we got in there was Espinosa. It is in fact Arsenio Gonzalez, who went away yesterday. So there we are, and the rider on the back, Virenque, earlier holder of the polka dot jersey in the King of the Mountains, when we're down in Spain, still hanging on to this group who are searching after the leading 5. We're up with the leading group of the climb up the Alpe d'Huez. The rider being dropped off this one, Montoya. We're down to 4 men. Montoya's out of it right now. Good climb, but he's had enough of this one. Still Hampsten looking remarkably comfortable on the front. Jan Nevens, perhaps not the climber of the same stature of the rest of the riders in this little group, is in fact sitting at the back, as I'd expect him to do, leaving Franco Vona, who did a great ride up Sestriere yesterday, to take a 2nd place on the climb, and these are the riders who are chasing after them. That's the 10-kilometre go board. Well, that's still going to take them something around about 15 minutes, I suppose, toward the top of this climb. They're well ahead of the expected average speed on this stage yet again. Theunisse moving through? Do you think he's going to have a go at this one, or has he got to sit there and say, that's it, I'm in for 6th place?
Right, you're trying to draw me into a prediction here, David. But, I mean, the other riders around him, they've all proved that they've been going well in the mountains. Theunisse, we know in other years that he's gone well, and certainly we thought today that he'd be going for the Alpe d'Huez stage, but we don't know until it really happens, do we?
No, we don't. And the team cars behind, by the way, normally they run in order. In fact, they always do until they come forward for that reason. They run in order of the riders on general classification. So the first team car behind this little group will be that of Indurain for Banesto. The next car will be that of Carrera. You saw it come up then for Claudio Chiappucci, who's lying second on general classification. And the third team car in line will be that of Gianni Bugno for the Gatorade team. And that's the way they have the pecking order, which means that the best placed riders can get very quickly serviced, or their managers can get up very quickly to talk to them. And here then, just those 4 men still out there, and this is the chasing group.
We see the team cars all day. This is the Tour de France is the only race in the world where you're compelled to use the sponsor's brand of car. Normally, every team has different sorts of car and has their own stickers all over the car. But for the Tour de France, they're supplied with these particular model of car by the sponsor, and it means putting their own stickers on the car, setting it up, setting the roof racks up, and there's quite a lot of organisation that goes into setting up a team car, because there's the seats, and you've got to take the headrests out so you can see, and you've got to be able to jump out of the car quickly. So it involves quite a deal of setting up all the cars that we see here.
Well, years gone by, I remember they used to have the doors off the cars. The supplier then used to take both doors off, and they used to have like a canvas side to them so that they could get in and out quite easily, but they don't bother to do that now in this day and age. Of course, I think many of the cars with sunshine roofs, they stand and look out the top and can see what's going on, and they can very quickly leap out when necessary. Because the trouble with opening doors is that riders and motorcycles can bang into them, but certainly the old canvas doors were something used for a long, long time.
Well, like we were talking about yesterday in the latter part of the stage, when we were talking about opening the doors to keep the spectators back, wouldn't be such a bad idea yesterday, just to use the doors as a bulldozer.
Well, another bottle gone down as a souvenir, and so Gonzalez on the front, Theunisse behind. The yellow jersey at Miguel Indurain, just behind in the polka dot jersey of Claudio Chiappucci. Chioccioli in there as well for the GBMG boys, and the R.M.O ride at the back. Virenque doing the right thing, I think, in watching them up in front do the work and just sensibly following the wheels of men who've got a lot more experience than he's got at this sort of thing. Up in front, you can see the motorcycle, the man saying go forward, go forward. He's trying to urge the traffic on, because they begin to catch up to some of the motor cars in front. We might have a bit of a traffic jam, and whoever's up there, they're trying to get them out of the way. You see the baton going, the commissaire's gone forward to urge those vehicles on. Furious screaming going on over the race radios, because we say these team cars are not the normal ones that they have. They have to put their own radios in. They have special frequencies, race radio frequencies, and many of the team managers also transfer their horns across, don't they? Because they all seem to have their different tone to play.
Yes. Also, too, on the flatter stages, you see the heavier type helmets. They've got radio receivers built into them now, so one or two riders in the team can ride along with the earphone in and get tactics on the move from the team without having to go back to the team car.
Oh, nice move there. Hampsten then sharing a drink with Franco Vona, and behind it's Boya's turn. Just these three then. They've shelled out Nevens, they've shelled off Montoya, and the rider there, whoops, run faster, little lad. He's done it. Oh, that's made his day. He'll go back and tell his schoolmates. He actually handed up a bottle of water to Erik Boye. Well, these three sharing the pace. They know they've got to share at the moment, because this group behind, whittling away, but still round about 3 minutes. It's just inside the three at one of the latest time checks we've got coming in. What a race we've got going up this climb.
These three riders up in the front group now, they realise that the time will be whittled down, and it doesn't matter whether the time gap's only 5 seconds at the end. The main thing is that they aren't caught for the sprint for the line, because if they are caught, it means that most probably the riders here, Indurain and Bunyo, will sprint past them. So it's in their best interest. We see Boyer going just off the back there.
Well, and if you just tuned in, let me tell you also the sad news of the day is that Greg LeMond has abandoned the race today. He was off the back at the very first hill of the day up the de Montenegro. So LeMond decided after they went over the top of the Galibier when he was something like about 18 minutes down that enough was enough, and he has retired from the race. What a war of attrition we've got yet again, because yesterday 14 men abandoned on the race. Others were taken out because they were outside the time limit. The same thing will happen today. There will be a time limit on the race. Depending on the winner's time, a percentage will be applied. And there are a lot of very, very tired riders when suddenly the elastic snaps and off the back you go. We'll be happy to get to the Alpe d'Huez today, but many of them will be packing their bags and on their way home because they're going to finish outside the time limit. This morning we started with 148 riders or so in the race, and there's going to be a lot less than that will be on the road tomorrow. The damage is being done today by the consistent riding of this group you're looking at now, with only Andy Hampsten left in there with Franco Vona with any chance of winning this stage. The gap though 2:55 it was at the bottom of the valley, something in the order of 3 minutes and 27 seconds, so it's coming down all the time, and Andy Hampsten searching for a stage victory today in the Tour. He hasn't done that for some time now, and has he got it in his legs as he's got rid of Franco Vona, who finished second yesterday. Vona came back in a remarkable way yesterday. He suddenly recovered towards the end when Indurain had gone past him and came back past Indurain, and now up in front Hampsten heading away looking for a victory in this year's Tour de France, but still a long way off the top of this this very tortuous road up towards the summit of the Alpe d'Huez, a race that's seen enormous competition in the past, and look at this crowd.
We see Hampsten, he hasn't actually attacked Vona, but he's just kept the pace so high. Vona's kept going and going. His heart rate's got to a limit where he knows that he can't go at that pace, so he's backed off. He's not going to leave himself in a position where he explodes and he's just totally shattered and left on the road. He's just backed off. He knows he's got to just settle in and ride at his own pace to the finish line.
And this is a chasing group with still the yellow jersey there, and still the yellow and blue and red jersey of Theunisse there, and they're all one by ones. Well, this means the concerted effort of that little leading group has now disappeared under the pressure of Hampsten, who is still looking very, very good indeed, riding a bike made by Eddy Merckx, who was 5 times winner of the Tour de France and now is in the bicycle manufacturing business. So I'm sure the bold Eddy will be pleased with young Hampsten's performance today.
Well, oftentimes when you look in the results of the paper at the cycling, you see MT or ST same time. Today, it's definitely not going to be the same time for many of the riders. It's going to be staggered, and it's going to look more like a finish of a time trial.
Yeah, it's going to be goodbye for some of them, I think, isn't it, too? As the speed of this back group is quite formidable, and I think they're accelerating, and certainly the gap is still coming down. Those mad spectators, I know that some would like to get in the act of it all, but I can't comprehend why anybody, except one running all the way up there, what on earth is he trying to do, except, as we said the other day when the fat fellow went, have a mobile heart attack. God dear me. Well, Virenque's hanging on in there. That's a nice little move on his part, doing the right thing, isn't he?
He's chipping away, and Richard's one of those, he's a real character. He'll just stay there and do what he can.
Well, Chiappucci at the front.
You can see now Chiappucci's just really turning up the pace. Even as he takes a drink, he's still pedaling and keeping the force on the pedals.
And we're back up then with Andy Hampsten, the American.
This is a really nice ride by Andy. He's one of the super friendly guys in the bunch. He's not a big head, and he'll talk to anyone. Today he's really put it in the legs, and he's riding just so smoothly. He's just been working away all day. He hasn't had to have any super aggressive attacks. He's just kept the pressure on and whittled this small group down, and now he's by himself for what looks like a stage victory.
Well, 29 years of age and 5'9", weighing 140 pounds. That's 10 stone in the UK. So 10 stone is quite light for a man who's 5'9", but it just shows his long limbs as well. He's quite slim, but got a lot of power in there too. There's a Motorola car going up to have a word with him as Franco Vona is left a lone ride in second spot. So Hampsten then from Boulder, Colorado, the 29-year-old just up the front of this group. In fact, he turned 30 on April the 7th, so perhaps a little birthday present rather late might here for him, as he's still 3 minutes 7 seconds, because that was coming down inside 3 minutes. He's accelerating away again. That's good, isn't it? There's Bernardino at the back, another man who's fought his way up this top of the climb of the Alpe d'Huez in the past, and he had a tremendous success in '86 when he went up with Greg LeMond, when LeMond was in the yellow jersey, tried to get rid of LeMond, failed to do it, and Greg took one of his 3 successes on the Tour de France, 3 yellow jerseys, but Greg is out of the race. And another American here that has always been there or thereabouts is Andy Hampsten.
You can see Henny Kuiper there, just a quick flash, and I'm sure himself being a great rider and knowing the problems that occurred yesterday, the directors would be very, very careful that the same thing didn't happen again. And Henny, I'm sure, would be as close to behind Andy or behind this motorbike that we're seeing the view with the camera at the moment, as close as possible to stop all these crazy spectators. And I'm sure that they'll be moving back a lot quicker, knowing that a car's going to hit them if they try and get in the way like they did yesterday.
Well, I don't think, in fact, that Andy Hampsten has ever won a stage in the Tour de France. He's had thirds and he's had fifths, and he's been in 4th place overall. He's taken the white jersey as the best young rider in the Tour, but I certainly don't think that Andy's actually won a stage in the Tour de France before. He's won stages in many other major road races, stage races, but he certainly, to my knowledge, hasn't had a stage in the Tour de France. He's had one certainly in the Tour of Switzerland. He's had a couple of stage wins in the Tour of Italy when he won that one overall as well. So Andy, if you hang on to this one, is going to create a bit of history as far as he's concerned, and some publicity of Motorola, who've been searching for a stage victory this year. Normally we would have expected Bauer or Anderson to perform on the flat and search for them, but with 21 stages and 22 teams in the race, everybody tries to get a stage victory, and it looks like he might be on the way to doing just that now, because the gap's still hovering around about 3 minutes.
I would have liked to hear the team talk at the Motorola camp last night. I mean, we mentioned that it's been a fairly quiet tour up until yesterday for the Motorola team, and today, I mean, it's you quickly eat your words when you realise what Andy Hampsten's done today. I mean, he's had such a good ride, and he's been with the break the whole day, and now he's here. And he's just settled. You notice he's settled into a nice rhythm. He's up on the bars. He's relaxed. He realises that he's going for the win, and he's really driven. Although he's tired, he's driven by the fact that he's going to get the stage victory.
And his top here soaked in sweat and water from the effort and climbing this hill. They're reeling him in one by one. Montoya now being pulled in. All that long work, that hard effort to stay away, and he has now got to give best to this very fast-moving group. I don't think he's got the strength to get on the back, has he? Is he going to try? No, he's still going at his own speed. Well, disappointment then. I mean, second in the Tour of Spain when we all thought he was going to win it, just couldn't time trial well, and that went to Tony Rominger, who frightened a few people, because Tony was never looked upon as being a man who could win a major tour. Always the shorter ones the early part of the season, because he suffered with hay fever and troubles with the pollen. Well, he won that one. Montoya out of that one. He's out of winning a stage today, and this group's still working away one by one, picking off the early escapers. Well, they've stuck together so far. They haven't split, have they, this little lot? And Chiappucci's doing most of the work at the front still. I'd have thought, presumably, I mean, going on to these, I'm questioning it. Perhaps he hasn't got any more strength at the moment. He's not driving that bit faster, is he? I mean, perhaps it's very much this brinkmanship they do, expecting someone to crack up in front.
Well, maybe also David is being sensible and realising that if he does attack, Chiappucci and both Indurain and Chiappucci could join him and counter-attack him. Yeah. And if that happened, he might not have the energy to go with him. So obviously he's a smart rider, and he knows his own capabilities, and really he could be just waiting till a bit later.
Yeah, he's always there, isn't he? Look, he's just moving up alongside the shoulder of Chioccioli now, and he's getting a bit further near to the front, just progressively moving up, not jumping around, and sitting there solid as rock as Chiappucci has to miss yet another spectator standing out in their way. He is, isn't he? Look, he's just getting that Theunisse in the yellow, just moving up towards the front. And this is the man they're chasing down. So on his own at the moment, Andy Hampsten going towards what might be his first stage victory in the Tour de France. The rider who took the white jersey for the best under-24 rider way back in 1986 when he finished 4th in the Tour. And here he is now with 4 kilometres from the top. And it flattens just a little bit here, but you can see in the distance the ski village of the Alpe d'Huez just up there. If the cameras go up on the right-hand side, massive number of people have been up waiting. Yes?
There you go. You see the graceful limb that you were talking about before. He's just got 2 punches in on 2 people. He's definitely not in the mood to have people pouring water over him. He can't afford to be having cold water poured over his body. I mean, his body temperature's way up now, and his resistance would be very low, and he can't afford to be getting sick just through the over-enthusiasm of some spectator.
Well, with 4 kilometres to go, Andy Hampsten now lead of some 3 minutes and 32 seconds. Surely, barring some sort of accident, that must be enough to get this Motorola rider his first victory of the Tour. As this little group here are just going under the 5 kilometre, so they are a whole kilometre behind Andy Hampsten. The crowd here welling out onto the pathway in front of these riders. Still struggling up in front are the early riders that have been seen off, because early on we saw Montoya pull back. Boyer, Hampsten, Vona, Nevens were all in that early break. We've not been seeing where the rest have they gone. So let's see off a helicopter who's surviving between Hampsten. That's Hampsten, we've gone straight up to.
We're looking at about 8 to 10 minutes of this main group. This second group that we see until the finish.
Well, the gentleman carrying the stars and stripes, I think that President Bush will send him a message of congratulations. Happy to be wearing a Swiss national champions jersey, so I suppose that's a multitude of sins, because of course, anyway, Andy Hampsten, best known as the Tour of Switzerland rider, because he won that in '87. He had a 3rd place in 1990 and a 3rd place in 1991. He's very much a Tour of Switzerland rider, and here we have this little group. No, Theunisse is still slotted back into 3rd, so perhaps you're right, he might well have said, that's it, I've just got to ride and get the best place I can out of this little group. Oops, that's it. So having got the special Prime prize this morning up the climb of the Col de Galibier, we're now seeing, I think, the last of the effort for today as far as Chioccioli is concerned. He picked up 20,000 French francs, that's about £2,000 for his performance on the Souvenir de Grange up the Galibier, but he's drifting off the pace now, and still young Virenque is here hanging on. And up in front, it looks like the yellow jersey is beginning to put the pressure on Chiappucci. Oh, nonchalantly almost there, the way that Indurain looked back to see if Chiappucci's all right when that spectator got in the way. And the first prize at the top, 5,000 francs, that's 500 quid. Just imagine that, going all the way up here to earn £500. If you paid people £5,000, they wouldn't want to ride up this hill alone, let alone ride all the way to get here. The distance they've covered, 186 kilometres by the time they get to the top of this climb, and the massive crowd here cheering Andy Hampsten on his way up. Just parting enough for him to say, daft to get their photos on the old television, just getting in the way of the rider too. It is appalling, really. Franco Vona, who was with that group, there are. Now then, that's 3:40, say 3:38 actually, a bit late getting the camera up into the other. They're saying 32 seconds back to Vona from Hampsten, 3:30 something then.
We can see J Theunisse losing contact with the group there. He's finally blown, and we can see Virenque go past him, and he's looking around to see if he's caught back up, and Virenque's just trying to stay in contact with the group too now.
So So to answer that question then, as whether Theunisse was saving himself an onslaught the last 5 kilometres, the answer no. He's sold out at this point, and just showing the strength of the yellow jersey here. This is our last big day in the mountains, by the way, and Indurain doing what he has to do on general classification at the moment. Claudio Chiappucci is 1 minute 42 seconds down. He's got to keep an eye on Claudio Chiappucci. He's done it all the way up here. Chiappucci's riding on his wheel. Gianni Bugno is further down the slope this morning, 4:20 down on classification. Lino also further down the slope at 7 minutes 21. So this is a day, I think, again, when Indurain has forced his majestic power upon this race, and young Andy Hampsten in front, or say young 30-year-old Andy Hampsten in front now for Motorola, is riding to what I think is his first ever stage victory in the Tour de France. How the hell you can decide where to go to that massive crowd, I don't know. And Vona is drifting off the pace. He's about 40-odd seconds down. Virenque now is having some problems in hanging on to the pressure that Indurain is putting all his nearest competitors under. And Indurain is doing what he does best of all. That's relentlessly driving, riding, and riding people off his wheel. So this must be the day when he shows that he is the winner of the yellow jersey, and that with come the time trial, that he'll dominate that yet again. But as my producer Annette said to me some years ago, when Fignon was 50 seconds up on Le Mans the final time trial, don't throw it away, anything can happen, they've not finished yet. And how right she was, because Le Mans won by 8 seconds. So Indurain then, in terms of strength, ability, courage, and an understanding of what the Tour de France is all about, is certainly the man in the yellow jersey who should win this one. But you never know until we get to the finish. There's another week yet to go. We wish him no ill at all, but riders can suffer from all sorts of problems, and at the moment, though, he doesn't seem to be suffering. It's the rest of the riders in the Tour de France that are suffering under the pressure that Indurain has applied ever since he took the yellow jersey at the end of that time trial stage. And now there's only 2 of them left to chase after. Franco Vona in front and Andy Hampsten. They're up there in front of them on the hill, just those 2 riders. I don't know what's happened to Boyer, obviously. He got caught, Clayton. I haven't seen Boyer come back either. But Hampsten went away, Vona was next, Boyer was the other one in there. We saw Nevens drop off, and we saw Montoya drop off, and here's Franco Vona rocking away. We've got him down as second on the road at the moment, but where the heck is Boyer? We shall see when we get to the top, and what a welcome sight, eh?
2 kilometres to go. Normally the Flamme Rouge, the last kilometre, that's when the riders really get motivated, and I know for myself that's once you're in the final kilometre, you really get that surge.
And on the Alpe d'Huez, there is a little bit of a false flat actually between the 1 kilometre and the finish. It flattens and goes up again. It just kicks at them, but here they're still 1 kilometre behind. So whatever it takes them to do that one, Andy Hampsten has gone under the 2. They're just under the 3. And the gap then 3:32. It's been it was 3:10, then 3:1, then 3:32. It's been yo-yoing a bit. It may well come down still as we get close to the top, but I can't see him pulling back 3 minutes in these final 3 kilometres, with Hampsten now just 2 to do.
Well, we saw Hampsten yesterday in the break, and today he's been rewarded for his efforts. He got in the break early, and he was probably with slightly lesser riders today, but he persisted, and it was more or less a process of elimination. And here he is by himself, and he's really going for the line now. You can see he's really pedaling.
Well, Franco Vona was 51 seconds down on Hampsten as he went underneath that banner at 2 kilometres to go. The Basques are here, the flags, Belgium are here. I've seen even a Union Jack painted on the side, on the road as well. So Miller will get a big applause when he comes up, because he's certainly in the top 20 on the road further down, we heard, but goodness knows what might be happening now. So everybody here will have a wonderful sight, and they're waving the flags of different nations. See, the Basque flags are out, the Spanish flags are out. The flags of all nations are here for these riders who are taking part in this, the 1992 Tour de France. Next year, the 90th since this great race was first thought of way back in 1903. And every year we see epic battles. We've seen one this year, and looks like history being made again for Andy Hampsten as they go round these 21 hairpin bends, relentlessly riding up towards the top of this, the final hard, tough mountain stage in the Tour de France. Tomorrow then the 15th stage of the race. We'll be just taking in 2 third cats and 1 second category climb on the way into Saint-Etienne. The next day on the 16th stage, there's just a couple of second category climbs and 1 third category climb as Hampsten now works towards the 1 kilometre to go. He looks like he's got this one in the bag. Then from the 17th stage, a couple of, well, there's only 4 fourth category climbs. So the Claudio Chiappucci in the polka dot jersey, looks like he's got that one well and truly stitched up because he's going to finish in the top 3 or 4 places here. We know Vona is between Hampsten and these two. We haven't seen what's happened to Boyer at the moment, but we'll find out when they get up towards the finishing line. I pressed the watch at the 2 kilometre to go banner, but we've gone back and now picked up Vona, who might yet still hang on to that second place. So that second place, 2 days on the trot for the man who took 2 stage victories in the Tour of Italy and finished in that race in 6th place overall. 1 down on Hampsten, who was 5th in the Giro d'Italia. So Hampsten showing remarkable strength, as Indurain is doing, to ride both in the Tour of Italy and in the Tour de France. No sign yet of Boyer, isn't there?
No, I think we lost him. Lost in the crowd, maybe.
What do you think of this crowd, eh? Magnificent, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good crowd. It's good for the sport, and I mean, even with the tremendous coverage on Eurosport and the radio, and I mean the modern technology enables you to sit at home and watch. I mean, it hasn't lessened the strength of the crowd and the numbers over the years either, which is a good thing for cycling.
And even a Japanese flag hanging out there. Many of the riders, of course, on Japanese equipment, once dominated over the years by the Italians and the French. But still, it's an international component supplies, international bike riders. Here, we're seeing an American riding a bicycle made in Belgium with Japanese parts upon it. And what an international race we've got yet again. And a victor then goes victory to an American, Andy Hampsten. I'm pretty certain that's the first ever victory Andy's had in the Tour de France. He'll be elated with that one. And Franco Vona hanging on for his second place of the Tour, if he can just hang on in there that little bit, just all the way. Look at that, 32.7 kilometers per hour. That's again a stage in excess of 20 miles an hour under very, very tough conditions. The temperature in the 30 degrees centigrade. The riders, having been in the saddle yesterday for 7 hours and 44 minutes was the winner's time. And some of the competitors coming in over 50 minutes down on the leader yesterday. They've had some very, very tough rides in the Tour de France this year. And the Alpe d'Huez has seen now this, the 18th finish of the Tour up here at the Alpe d'Huez. Last year and the year before, it's Bugno that won it. This year we've got an American. Looking back down the list, we've never seen an American win it before in the Alpe d'Huez. So even in the days when Le Mans was trying hard, he didn't quite get it, though he allowed, of course, Hino to win way back in '86, pushed him over the line because Le Mans had kept the yellow jersey. So it's been a battleground for stage successes. It's been battleground for the yellow jersey. And the yellow jersey once again has shown consistently today, aided and abetted by the Banesto team. As Franco Vona now just about makes it in. And yes, there we are. There is Boyer. We thought he was still on his bike. So he is in third spot at the moment, so Zed have got something to show for a day which have got disappointment because Greg LeMond, their Zed team leader, is out of the Tour, having failed to stay the pace again today. Yesterday he came in 49 minutes down, Greg, on the leader. He tried to start today. One of his teammates waited for him, but in the end it was no good at all as he got further and further behind, and after the Galibier we knew enough was enough. But nevertheless, Zed today got something to show for their team in the Tour de France. A third place then for Eric Boyer to go with the stage he got in the Tour of Switzerland, which is one of those races that they have early in the season as a sort of a testing ground for the Tour de France. 2 minutes and 8 seconds down. Well, we've probably got just less than a minute to wait for these two to come in the yellow jersey, triumphantly, Miguel Indurain from Spain. The Italian there, the little fella behind him in the polka dot jersey, the king of the mountains. Claudio Chiappucci, yet again, taking that polka dot jersey in towards the finish in France, in Paris. Claudio is second overall in general classification. In fact, Nevens is still there. I thought he got blown out further down. Well, my apologies to young Jan Nevens. That's a superb ride, isn't it, Dave?
Yes, Steve, it's good to see that the riders that were in the break have struggled to stay in the front. and been rewarded with their efforts. I mean, to go so early, and it would have been a shame if they were swallowed up by these riders, or even the main group.
Well, Montoya was caught actually. There were some 2, 4, 5 men away. So certainly Hampsten, then Vona, then Boyer have managed to get first, second and third. And here we come up, having got Nevens into fourth place, fifth and sixth, as Chiappucci searches for an extra point in the King of the Mountains competition. He's got that one stitched up now. He'll be able to ride the rest of the race and keep out of trouble and keep that jersey through to the finish. He's still in second place behind the yellow jersey of Miguel Indurain, as the press go absolutely mad. Everybody trying to get a comment from the man in the yellow and the man in the polka dot. We'll see him up on the rostrum later on as Virenque. That's a great ride today for him, isn't it?
Yes, that's a really pleasing ride for Richard.
He's another young rider too, isn't he?
Yes, he's such a character. I just laugh when I see him. I mean, he's such a good guy to be with, and he's one of my favourites to be when we share. We only ever have 2 riders to a room, and he's one of my favourites to be with because he's always got a smile on his face. He's wrapped. You can see he throws his hand up like he's won the stage.
4 minutes and 3 seconds down, but still it's a great ride for him today to be up there. And J Theunisse, previous stage victor in the Alpe d'Huez, just couldn't hold the pace when the pressure came on with Indurain and Chiappucci at the front. Let's see who else we've got coming in further down. Gonzalez was there, but looks like
braking,
yes.
Yeah.
So he's fought his way up. It's amazing how it changes on the lower reaches as 1 or 2 of the riders struggle. Braking was always there or thereabouts in the main group along the Bourg d'Oisans, and he's come up. He's actually passed Montoya because he was in that early leading group, but he's not with it at all.
We see he's obviously fought back and rode quite strongly to finish so close to Chiappucci and Indurain.
Yeah, and he's gone past Chioccioli, who was in that little group too, wasn't he?
We see Lino there.
Yep.
Pascal, he's sort of when he went off the group, he realised, and we can see the R.M.O team car behind as well. And they'll be very happy with Pascal's ride today. He's showing that even though he's lost the jersey, he hasn't thrown in the towel, and he's fought on today, and you can see he's really, really tired now.
So he came in 5 minutes 10 seconds down on Miguel Indurain, and Chioccioli, who was also just outside the top 20 start this morning in 22nd place. That might move him up a little bit, I think, because he's certainly coming in ahead of people like Ryalcao and Francisco Mauleon. So he could well move into the top 20. And there is Montoya behind him, I think, who we saw further down. Certainly the Amaya rider in the distance, trying to stay the pace. And another one coming up as well. And that is Pedro Delgado, coming up very quickly indeed. Of course, there are points towards the, well, they're actually tying towards the team award for today. That'll be the second of the Banesto riders, actually sprinting at the moment, Delgado. That's 1 and 2 as far as Banesto are concerned. We've only had 1 of the Carrera riders over yet. Perini was going well further back down the road, and in fact here he comes now, Perini, and so that'll be the second of the counters for the Carrera team. CLAS have got 2 riders in so far, and Amaya have got 2 in as well. So the very complex team award I think we're going to find today. 2 from Telekom still sat together.
That looks like Bolts there's just pushed the Ariostea rider out of the way, followed by Heppner, and there's
Robert Miller, that's, yep. So it's interesting, we get 2 from TVM, 2 from Carrera, 2 from Banesto. We've got 2 from CLAS come up already as well. So it's going to be the 3rd man in the team today that everybody's going to be anxiously waiting for to see who gets the team award today. Obviously, as far as Banesto is concerned, they've got 2 very well top place riders in Indurain and Delgado. But who is going to be the 3rd counter for the various teams? 32.7 miles kilometers per hour. So Telekom will have 2 men up as well. That's going to be the judges have to get the old computer going to sort the team award out today. And a 3rd counter for CLAS as well. So I think they're probably the first team to finish 3 men. You wouldn't think they've just ridden all that far when you're bouncing along, eh? You're fascinated, aren't you, by this?
The thing also that makes it difficult for the riders, you notice a lot of the front riders here, they're sprinting for the line, and they don't have any, they've built the lactic acid up in the legs, and they don't have any room or distance to warm down at all. They suddenly just stopped, and they've got nowhere to move.
And the man who stopped today, here he is, Bunyo, who got dropped at one time. He was really suffering up on the climb of the main climb of the day when we went up over the top of the Col de la Fère. One time on the Galipio, he'd been well and truly up there in the lead earlier on, but he suffered for that. It looks like Bunyo's going to drop out and be maybe 5th overall in general classification. Lino certainly finished ahead of him and will go ahead. Delgado this morning, he was 5th, so we're probably finding that Pascal Lino will move up to probably 3rd place. Bunyo would like to drop down to 5th or 6th, I'd have thought. He's really going to be in trouble at the moment, and that would be disappointing for a man who's twice been a victor here, as Jim van der Leer for Tulip decides to have a hammer at the rainbow jersey and give him a bit of a rush for the finish. And still Rondon riding in for Gatorade with his team captain. He's let him take the line, so that's 9:02. I actually noted the time of Pascal Lino, so in fact Lino's has got something like 4 minutes out of him then.
There's Bowman.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so in fact Lino has just pulled about another 4 minutes out of Bunyo. So certainly this morning when they started out, there was 3 minutes difference between them. So Lino has now gone over Bunyo. He could well be in 3rd place. I'm not quite sure about Delgado, where he came up probably just that bit ahead of Lino, because there was 1 minute 20 seconds between the two. I didn't take Delgado's time on the line, but probably Delgado could well have gone 3rd and Lino 4th. It's that close at the moment, but Bunyo certainly has dropped out of the top 3 and will now be back there in probably about 6th place. Well, they're still coming in here, and there's a lot of riders further down on the road as Espinosa for CLAS comes on in. This massive crowd enjoying the sunshine. They've seen some great rides today.
Well, thank you very much, David, for allowing me to sit here for the last 2 days. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, I've welcomed having you here too, Clayton. And like Clayton, Stevenson and Duffield, it sounds like such fellow solicitors, but we've been commentating today for you on the Tour de France, covered by Eurosport. Another great day. We hope you'll join us tomorrow then for more racing. Do join us, please, on Eurosport. Bye-bye.
Déjà terminé 4e du Tour de France. Malheureusement, le Canadien n'était pas au top sur un tour aussi difficile que celui d'aujourd'hui.